You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Hello and welcome to the International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show. I am your host, Michelle Estelle, the Homebuyer Coach, and I am coming to you from KCAA Broadcasting Network on 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. If you've missed any of our previous shows, you can watch us on our TV streaming channel distribution on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, or the Android app. All you have to do is subscribe to the Building Solid Foundations channel. So today I have a show planned for you. We're going to go over a couple segments of diving a little deeper into credit and share some of the things that are happening in the industry, as well as myths, and just give you a better idea of how to obtain a high credit score. So one of the things that's happening is the bureaus are selling consumers information when they do an inquiry for credit, for a credit application. A lot of people think that it's the lender selling the information, but it actually is the bureau selling it. And what happens is it triggers a credit trigger, basically, and then that is basically kind of sold to other lending institutions, and then you get a gazillion phone calls for soliciting business. So this has been a real problem, and I don't believe that this should happen. But of course, I'm a consumer as well as a lender, and it has happened to me, and it is extremely annoying. If you put it on top of all of the potential spam calls you get anyway, and then to get a gazillion phone calls to solicit your business can be quite annoying. So one way that we've been trying to combat this is to do soft pull credit. This does not do a credit trigger when we do a soft pull, so it can be helpful in buying a little time before you have to have a tri-merge credit report for a financial application. And you will receive those calls anyway, but not initially. This is basically how we are helping to keep you from getting those phone calls in your initial stage of application. So I wanted to just dive in a little bit more into what makes a great credit score and a little bit about the myths. So by doing the soft pull, we are avoiding that inquiry. But a lot of people have been fearful of having their credit run. And it's warranted, definitely, because if you do have your credit run multiple times, but usually to buy or apply for multiple different things, your score will drop. And the reason that it drops is because this artificial intelligence really has no way of knowing how much credit you're actually going to obtain and your ability to repay it. So if you are adding a lot of credit, then it is going to drop your score, because it is saying right now you're a little bit more of a risk than you were, because you may have extended yourself and you show no payment history yet. So this is generally when you run your credit. Let's say you're going to apply to buy a home, but on top of that, you're going to buy a car and a boat and an RV and open a couple credit cards so that you have them to spend to use on your trip around the world, let's say. So you have more credit lines added, credit availability. You are showing that you're purchasing large ticket items potentially if you were applying for a boat and a motorhome and a mortgage. And there's really no pay history at that level. So that is why your score initially drops, because your score is telling them the risk. And if you've added a bunch of new risks without showing your ability to repay that, you've added a bunch of new accounts without showing your ability to repay that, that could mean that you're at a higher risk, because we have no history of your ability to pay that back. So that is why your credit score drops with a certain type of inquiry. But on a mortgage inquiry, multiple inquiries within 30 days only count as one inquiry. And that is specifically so that you're able to check into different things and make solid decisions without having your credit be affected initially. So you can have multiple inquiries for a mortgage within 30 days. But if you have an inquiry into a mortgage and you have an inquiry to buy a car or a boat, then the combination of those two inquiries are not the same as one financial inquiry for a mortgage. So it definitely will affect your credit score initially. Thing about a credit score is it is not a final grade. Your credit score is always moving, and it's based on the use of your credit. So if you pay down a debt, your score changes. But if you charge up a debt, your score also changes. If you add new accounts, your score changes. If you are going to take that trip around the world and you put it on your credit cards and now you've maxed out a credit card, your credit card's going to change. When you pay that card down, either in increments or a lump sum, then your credit card, your FICO score is going to change. So there's never really a final grade. The ability of keeping your score high is to strictly manage certain things about your credit. And one of the main things is how you repay your debt. That represents about 35%. Paying on time, not having tax liens or judgments or derogatory credit obviously is a high percentage of showing your ability to repay debt. So that represents about 35%. The next thing that is really critical is the next highest amount is 30% of your debt is 30% of your credit score is based on your accounts owed or your outstanding balances on your accounts. And this is where we say to, or at least I say, to use your credit cards for things that you need and pay them back at a rapid pace so that your balances stay very low. The rule of thumb is about below 30%. But I think if you use your credit card for things you need, such as food and gas, you're spending a small amount in the hundreds probably. And then if you pay that off at $100 a month, you're going to be paying down that debt fairly quickly. And right before you pay it off, you could go grocery shopping and get gas again and do the same thing. So you're always going to be managing a low balance on your card. If you have a new credit card, you might only have a credit line of $300 or $500. So buying gas and groceries on a $300 or $500 limit is going to be a higher balance in relationship to available credit. But if you do just charge small amounts, let's say you only get gas once and then you pay it off, and then you get gas again and you pay it off, you still are going to have a low balance. So that is the idea, is not to max out your credit cards, but to use them and pay them off or pay them down as quickly as possible, and to use them for things that you normally would pay for out of checking, savings, or use cash. Not things that you don't need, that you did not have the cash to pay for. That would be a large ticket item that should be seriously debated and thought of in the budget before you would purchase it. But if you do it responsibly and it takes you longer to pay, that's fine. You'll just know that your credit score could be lower until you get that balance down to under 30%. So the main thing to remember is that your credit score is not a final grade. You don't get to an 800 score and stay there. It's going to be moving. So having an inquiry is the only way that you can apply for credit. And that snapshot in time is just for that application. Your score is going to move the next day, the next day. You're not even going to really understand how much your score dropped for an inquiry if you don't even know where you started. And using credit apps and things are not necessarily the same type of financial credit inquiry that we will do as a lender in order to determine your credit score. So your Credit Karma number might not even be reflective of what that financial credit report number might be. So losing a few points on it with a credit run is extremely temporary. So again, you don't want to run your credit recklessly. You do want to monitor what you're doing and pay attention to what you're doing, and always be managing the way that you use your debt and run your credit. That is very important. The other parts of your credit score are 10% well, two items that are 10% is basically the new credit and the credit mix. So if you have a lot of new accounts on your credit report, or you've opened a lot of new accounts recently, that can also drop your score, but it's only about 10%. And then new credit and then credit mix. So how much installment credit do you have? How much revolving credit do you have? Student loans, auto loans, and the different types of credit on your credit report also are contributing to the score. And that is at about 10% as well. And then the length of time that you've had credit is 15%. So the length of time you've had credit, it really makes your credit strong, even though it is only 15%. Having credit cards for decades, for years, is going to help your score more than opening a new card within less than 12 months. And for those first few months, it's going to drop your score until you have a payment history. So the key to long credit history is paid on time, low balances, and keeping your accounts open for a long time. One of the myths is closing some of your credit, and that really just shrinks down your credit profile, and also could shrink down the time that you've had credit if you close old cards that you're not using and you only have the new cards that you are using. Debt consolidation can sometimes interfere with that too, because you get a new card and you pay off an old card. And even though you still might keep that and you should never close it, now you've transferred the balance and it's a higher balance and it's a newer card. So that can affect your credit score. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and finish up on some credit. And then after that, we're going to talk about generational wealth. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll be right back.
Looking to attract your target market without soliciting or doing the cold calling? Call Marie Waite and book your consultation. Branding gives you the power to create a unique and classy perception of your business for your target audience. A marketing plan without the right branding will always cost more, take longer, and tend to deliver subpar results compared to a well-branded business. Marie Waite is a branding strategist who formulates effective marketing and media programs to promote your business in building your name, brand, and legacy. Marie has over 10 years of experience and a proven record of creating strong brand content for business owners, entrepreneurs, and companies using her creative ideas, recommendations, and innovative programs. Book now at mariewaite.com or call her at 951-378-5316, 951-378-5316.
This is Steve Matley. Join me every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations Radio Talk Show. I spent decades at Foundations Radio.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections. Hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Welcome back to the International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show. I am your host, Michelle Estelle, the Homebuyer Coach. Last segment, we went over some credit and credit score information. And basically, we were talking about the percentages of things that affect your score. There's 5 major things, and we discussed those, but we also were talking about the top 2, which are basically your payment history and your use of your credit. What I wanted to do in this segment is just do a refresher and then also give you some more information. So my main point about credit scores is that they are not a final grade. They do go up and down. Even if you manage your credit perfectly, you are going to have things that affect your score dropping and increasing over time all the time. Now, it's different if your score is dropping or increasing and you're in the 5s than if it's doing that in the 7s. So obviously you can have a great credit score, but still by use of a credit, paying off a car, doing anything to your credit that changes the balance, changes the percentage of use. And of course, if you unfortunately have a late payment, which you will probably at some point, at least one, we all run into some tough times, and it can happen, or it can be missed or a mistake. But your score is not a final grade. You don't get to the score and you keep the score there. It is going to ebb and flow. Inquiries do change your score, as we talked about in the last segment. But one day it's going to go down and one day it's going to go up. So the thing is to keep focused on the things that are most important, which is your payment history and the usage of your credit. Keep your credit cards with low balances. Do not max them out. Unless, of course, you're going on a big vacation, you're going to put it all on your credit card and you're going to pay it later. Then who cares what happens to your score? It's going to go down, then it's going to go back up. So what I want to talk about in this segment is just a couple tips about watching your credit and helping to manage it to a degree and making sure everything's okay. So if you do run your credit or get a free credit report for the year, you do want to make sure that your name is correct, that your social security number is correct, that your addresses are correct, that anything that's on public record belongs to you, the addresses that are reporting belong to you, the employment that's reporting belongs to you, and possibly look for variations of your name or your credit, your social security number or your credit card numbers that look like somebody might have had a data entry issue and then created a variation of your name or created a variation of your social security number. So you want to look for those things and get them corrected. You want to make sure that all your trade lines only show up once. I'm going to call out a company on here, but Navy Federal Credit Union reports their trades multiple times. And it appears what they do is it gets reported one way to 2 bureaus and another way to the 3rd bureau. So then there's always 2 reported. They are notorious for this. I've been doing this more than half my life, and Navy Federal Credit Union reports in a way that creates more than one line trade for the same credit card or credit line. So you definitely want to look at that. You want to confirm all of the existing balances, review past payments, and update significant recent payments. So if you made a large payment on your account, you just want to watch and make sure that gets posted appropriately. You also can use an app to monitor your credit score. It's good to kind of know if it's moving or if anything significant happens. It might be an indication that there could be some fraud or there could be some mistakes. And if you get to them right away, it's going to be beneficial to report it right away. The way that you can take care of it is to call the creditor directly. Another way is to do a dispute through the credit company or to do a dispute through the bureaus. Just to let you know, though, that disputes do need to be removed after the account is resolved. So if you do have a dispute with the charge or you do have a dispute with the information being reported, once you have the answer to that, you want to ask the bureaus to remove that dispute, because disputed accounts do block that trade from being reported, which can affect your scores. And if you are applying for a mortgage loan, we're going to ask you to remove those disputes on accounts that have balances so that we can make sure we're seeing your true score. Because if that account is being disputed for derogatory and it's not included in your credit score, then once the dispute is removed and it is reporting, it could change your credit score. And we need to know what the actual score is, of course. So we're going to ask you to remove disputed accounts on accounts that have balances. So dispute those accounts, but then make sure your credit report gets updated. You also want to look to see if you're getting too high on your balances. So if you have a $300 line of credit and you have $250 on that, or if you have a $10,000 line of credit and you have $9,500 or even $9,999. Also, anytime you do go over your credit limit, the reports on your credit report as a high credit limit, which means that you went over and above your credit limit at some point. But you do want to keep those balances as low as possible. So the trick is to try not to charge what you're not going to be able to pay off quickly. That sometimes is hard, and there's sometimes when we need the credit and it works really well to have the ability to pay it slower. But the idea is to try to know that what you're buying, that you ultimately can afford it within a relatively short period of time. The interest that accumulates on these cards will make it that you would have paid 10 times the amount back than for the item that you actually bought. So you have to understand that you, by having credit and paying interest to buy that item, you're actually paying so much more for it than if you might have saved just to pay it outright. So consider that. Make sure that you can maybe pay it off in a limited number of payments with an increase in the monthly payment over the minimum, so that you reduce the interest and you reduce that very quickly. That will definitely help. The way to correct credit errors is having the proper documentation and submitting that either directly to the creditor or to the bureau. Sometimes you are going to need to support the story or the error that you believe occurred, and you'll need documentation to prove that. You also can contact the bureaus directly, as I mentioned, and in either sense, if you even ask them a question, they generally will start a dispute process. A few of the myths around credit. One is that it's some kind of final grade and it's never supposed to go down, but it will. It will, even when you're doing the right things, or the so-called right things. It can make your score go down. Another thing is that paying off debt and collection accounts and derogatory credit will make your score go up. And in fact, paying old derogatory accounts or collections or charge-offs off can make your credit score drop. So even though you paid it to zero, what you've done is you've updated the date of reporting, and you've made that derogatory account, even though now with a zero balance, look like it is more recent than it was if it was an old collection or old derogatory account. It oftentimes is better just to leave it. If it's already been charged off, or it's already been paid and has a derogatory and it hasn't reported for some time, it's better to leave it. If it is a new account and it truly is reporting that it's newer, those type you can pay, because the reporting date doesn't change very much. And so paying off something that went to collection recently can be an advantage, but paying off something that was charged off or collection long ago, paying that one off can negatively impact you. So a lot of times people just want to pay everything off. Paying accounts to zero balances also could affect your score more negatively than just paying it down and leaving a balance of $100 or $20. So this is the main reason why we want to work with borrowers, particularly in the mortgage industry, that want to prepare to buy a home, because sometimes they do all the wrong things. And we wouldn't have them pay off the debt. We would have them save the money. Or we would have them pay off the debt only when they're going to get the home, not to spend the money until the end through escrow to document the full payment of that account. So just paying off your accounts to zero doesn't always give you the best scenario. Obviously, you get good credit by showing your use of that credit. So having all zero balances, it can be more of a negative. It's not going to be a negative like a derogatory, but you want to have a consistent credit payment schedule. And by keeping those balances low and making those payments is going to help you build your credit. Another thing is that used to be that people wanted to close the accounts with no balances because they interpreted the use of your credit to be, if you have too much available, it could be a negative. And that's not the case. It's better to leave all of your account, particularly because of that one of the 5 that says the length of time you've had credit. And if you close old accounts, then you're shrinking your credit history. So you open these new accounts and you stop using the old accounts, and the old account was from 10 years ago and the new account you just opened a year ago. If you close all of the accounts you had for 10 years, you're shrinking your credit history down to just 1 or 2 years. And that is going to negatively impact your credit, because the longer credit history you have with the longer history of on-time payment and good use of your credit, the better your score is going to be. That's how people get 800 scores. It's over time and a strong payment history. Also, the other myth is that public records judgments and liens negatively impact your FICO score forever, and they don't. They might stay on there, and the older that they are without any updates, the less they impact your credit score, and then eventually that does fall off of your credit after 7 years or 10 years in California. So bankruptcies, charge-offs, collections that aren't resolved, that don't turn into judgments on your home, because that can happen too. But if that does not happen, then it's better just to leave them alone, and they will drop off. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll be right back.
Radio.
Hey guys, it's Damon, Mr. Foxy, Damon Hart, and I'm here with the Real Men of Real Estate. And I just want to say, hey, come and watch us this Sunday, 1 p.m. live, every Sunday. Okay, we're going to be on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. If you got a minute, just tune in. We can't wait to have you here. I'm going to be there. If you can't make it on there, we're going to be at Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, or Android app on Building Solid Foundations channel. So tune in. You know what you got to do in the meantime. Keep it foxy.
FireUp Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. FireUp Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. FireUp Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station KCAA radio.com.
You're listening to Fabulous Lifestyle Radio. I'm your host, Ricky Perry, and we are affiliated with CNBC, NBC News, and Sports, where we broadcast over 5 million households in the greater Los Angeles area. If you missed our previous shows, you can watch us on our streaming networks on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and the Android app.
Looking to attract your target market without soliciting or doing the cold calling? Call Marie Waite and book your consultation. Branding gives you the power to create a unique and classy perception of your business for your target audience. A marketing plan without the right branding will always cost more, take longer, and tend to deliver subpar results compared to a well-branded business. Marie Waite is a branding strategist who formulates effective marketing and media programs to promote your business in building your name, brand, and legacy. Marie has over 10 years of experience and a proven record of creating strong brand content for business owners, entrepreneurs, and companies using her creative ideas, recommendations, and innovative programs. Book now at mariewaite.com or call her at 951-378-5316, 951-378-5316.
Welcome back to International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show. I am your host, Michelle Estelle, your home buyer coach, coming to you on KCAA, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. So in our last two segments, we spent time on credit and credit scores, and I hope that information was helpful to you in building your credit and understanding your credit. Now we're kind of going to delve into just a topic of generational wealth. That has become kind of a buzzword over time, and this radio show is really just for opinion, discussion, information, and I am not advising directly anybody do any one thing or think anything or believe one thing, but these are kind of my thoughts about generational wealth, and I'm giving them to you so that you can also think about it, like these aha type of things that come to mind sometimes when people talk about generational wealth. One thing is that most of the time people talk about generational wealth because they're selling you something, and they're creating a sense of this legacy or missing out on an opportunity, or looking at time in a different way. And so there's just a few things I want to bring up about generational wealth to think about this. The fact that if you don't do something, you won't have generational wealth. And if you do something, then you will. And it kind of gives you the idea that if you are, for instance, to buy a home, that you create generational wealth. And buying a home is an amazing investment opportunity, and it can be wonderful for the downline generation, both in the sense of education and in the sense of an asset for the family in the future. And so buying a home is really an honor and an amazing thing. And what it means to someone to own a home, and what that does to the stability of a family, and the sense of building memories and security, and just where people really create that family bond, and whatever family that it is extremely important. And I would never minimize that, because we have to have shelter. So we're spending money on shelter. And if you are renting, either by choice or by necessity, that is money that doesn't grow, that money doesn't appreciate, that money doesn't give you the opportunity to build wealth. Whereas owning a home is an appreciating asset. As long as you're holding it for a long time, it is going to go up. There's never been a time that if you're holding a home at least 10 years or beyond, that you aren't going to see the upside as well as the downside during that time. But you also have made payments on that home. So you're creating the equity through appreciation and through amortization. So if it didn't appreciate at all, you still paid off the loan, which then creates that position of equity. So you have to pay for shelter. So if you can invest in a home and pay off that home, you definitely have an asset there that can help you to build wealth. And so I 100% am a home buyer coach in order to help people to achieve homeownership, and maybe even buy multiple investment properties or primary residences over time that are for their growing home, or to move up because their career has expanded, or they've had to move to another state, and buying a home is just the greatest experience. But where I want to look at it from is that kind of the idea that buying a home and not buying a home automatically guarantees you some generational wealth. And so I want to just put some thoughts out there. Investing in the stock market also is a way to make your money grow. You can invest in annuities. You can invest in your retirement accounts. You can invest in the stock market. You can invest in mutual funds, and your money will grow. It also, you can experience losses. And so managing that money and saving over time is going to build wealth, the same or in lieu of owning a home. But if you need that money and you take that money out, or you have to use the money, or you have to spend the money, or you invest the money into the wrong account and you do lose some money, there are certain risks with that. The risks that I see with a home are a little different than the stock market when we are considering generational wealth, because what I think about is divorce, loss, bankruptcy, timing, a choice of when to sell a home on a short term versus a long term. And one thing that people don't think about in generational wealth is the age of the generations. So if you are an individual whose parents purchased a home and you think that you're going to gain wealth off of your parents having had a home without you having had a home, and your family was young when they started. So for instance, if your mom was 20 when she had you, you could be near your 60s and when your parents are in their 80s. And so if you haven't benefited from the generation before you and their home ownership, you're already 60. So if you haven't created that wealth on your own, you aren't actually being able to experience the wealth from the generation before you. Now, your kids, if you have kids and you have those kids young, it's potential that their grandparents could skip a generation and leave the grandkids the home, and it'll help to benefit them. But depending on their age and the value of that home and whether that home is sold and whether their older parents use that money or leave it to them, could determine what the next generation's benefit is from a different generation's homeownership. If a family purchases a home together and there's a loss of a spouse and the surviving spouse cannot maintain the home and has to sell it, they could be selling it later in life where the second and third generation do not benefit from that particular ownership of a home. There's also how the first generation might utilize the equity. How about they purchase a home and then they need to take money out of that home in order to add on to it or remodel it or maintain it or put a new roof on it, or upgrade it in some way. And so they have a loan on that home and they do have equity, but there's a loan that needs to be paid off if the next generation would get that home. Or a really, really, really important one is when people become elderly and they can't care for themselves anymore, they may need the equity or the asset to produce income for them in order for them to have care, long-term care. And so if they need to sell their house or finance their house or reverse mortgage their home in order for them to have care in their later life, then that asset's encumbered and it may not be generating wealth to the downline generation. If there's divorce in the family, if there's illness in the family, a home that they purchase could save them or they could lose the home. So I think that I'm always thinking that just because one generation has a home, the end result may not affect or benefit, I should say, the next generation. So each generation is going to have to be in a position to generate wealth. It's basically maybe not wealth for legacy, but wealth for living. So if your parents owned a home, I look at it more as the education of the importance and the how-to of purchasing a home, maintaining a home, caring for a home, and the expenses around that. Putting on a new roof, redoing some old plumbing, getting new flooring, updating bathrooms and kitchens, doing repairs to the home, doing repairs to the yard. That costs money, and sometimes you will use your equity in order to do that. But you've gotten the education and you've seen the process, so then you can repeat the process. And that's where I think that generational wealth happens more so, is from being able to educate and to repeat the process. And then each generation knows that the importance of home ownership, the dedication and the sacrifice that goes into home ownership, and the maintenance of the actual home over time in order to keep its value. Those things are highly important. And I think that we need to consider the educational part of wealth versus waiting for someone to leave you an asset or expecting it to be left to you and depending on that wealth in order for you to generate wealth. And I think that is not going to happen. I think that it is far better for each young individual to learn to save small amounts of money that grow and do that consistently, which we'll talk about in the next segment. So think about that, and we'll be right back.
Looking to attract your target market without soliciting or doing the cold calling? Call Marie Waite and book your consultation. Branding gives you the power to create a unique and classy perception of your business for your target audience. A marketing plan without the right branding will always cost more, take longer, and tend to deliver subpar results compared to a well-branded business. Marie Waite is a branding strategist who formulates effective marketing and media programs to promote your business in building your name, brand, and legacy. Marie has over 10 years of experience and a proven record of creating strong brand content for business owners, entrepreneurs, and companies using her creative ideas, recommendations, and innovative programs. Book now at mariewaite.com or call her at 951-378-5316, 951-378-5316.
Foundations Radio.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections. Hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station KCAA radio.com.
You're listening to Fabulous Lifestyle Radio. I'm your host, Ricky Perry, and we are affiliated with CNBC, NBC News, and Sports, where we broadcast to over 5 million households in the greater Los Angeles area. If you missed our previous shows, you can watch us on our streaming networks on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and the Android app.
Looking to attract your target market without soliciting or doing the cold calling? Call Marie Waite and book your consultation. Branding gives you the power to create a unique and classy perception of your business for your target audience. A marketing plan without the right branding will always cost more, take longer, and tend to deliver subpar results compared to a well-branded business. Marie Waite is a branding strategist who formulates effective marketing and media programs to promote your business in building your name, brand, and legacy. Marie has over 10 years of experience and a proven record of creating strong brand content for business owners, entrepreneurs, and companies using her creative ideas, recommendations, and innovative programs. Book now at mariewaite.com or call her at 951-378-5316, 951-378-5316.
Welcome back, everyone, to International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show with your host, Michelle Estelle, the home buyer coach. And last segment, we were getting into generational wealth and just some of my thoughts about what's important about that and what the risks are in thinking about generational wealth versus each individual's ability to build wealth, and not looking at the downline about what my parents are going to create wealth for me and I create wealth for my kids. Oftentimes, I think it skips generations, and we kind of went through that in the last segment. So I do just want to put a little bit more time into that, just for food for thought. As I said, these are just things that I think about. I want to give you a little bit of background on my family and why I think that there's no guarantee that there's generational wealth if one generation has it and the next would not be guaranteed that that would be the case. And a little bit of story about that. So my paternal grandparents never owned a home. My grandfather was a janitor, and he worked for a family who owned many, many properties, heavy real estate investors of units, apartments, homes, and my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, lived in those homes and then did the maintenance at multiple properties, and they never owned their own. So they pretty much left the earth at a pretty, I mean, my grandfather died at 78. My grandmother died in her mid 80s. But they didn't have anything. Not really a dime to their name. And then my father, which this is his parents, my paternal grandparents, my father went into the military, and he purchased a home with his VA loan when he got out of the military. So his parents not having a home did not affect his ability to then purchase a home for his family. My father had a sister who had two sisters, actually, a half sister and a full sister, but his sister married someone that I would say was more wealthy than her brother. She married someone who was a little bit better off than her brother, and they purchased a home. So one family that had 3 children, and all 3 of those children end up being homeowners. My aunt and uncle, who were more well off, had a beautiful home, which, you know, as a kid, you kind of might compare, and they had a home which I would say was more substantial than the one that my parents had. Each of these people, my father and his sister, each had 4 children. In my family, 4 girls. In his sister's family, 3 girls and a boy. In my family, 3 of the 4 of us own homes. In my father's sister family, only 1 owns a home. The others did not achieve home ownership. In the family, my half aunt, my dad's half sister, she had 2 children, and they both owned a home. But the parent who had the most wealth in that generation had 4 children, of which only 1 obtained homeownership. And in the family that was in the lower income, with the same amount of children, 3 of the 4 achieved homeownership. So now there's only 4 grandkids, and only they're just barely getting to the adult level, and none of them own a home currently. Our 4, the 3 of the 4 who own a home, had children at a young age. So now these adult children, in order for them to depend on wealth from their parents, that generation, if we live as long as our grandparents and parents have lived into our 70s and 80s, they would be waiting to attain generational wealth from a previous generation, but they would be 60 before those things would be left to them as assets. If the families are able to help with the down payment now, then that type of wealth can help earlier. But the type of wealth that you are leaving as an inheritance may not help you, because if your parents live a long time, you will already have lived your life waiting for that inheritance. So, and then if your parents do live a really long time and they're very elderly and they aren't able to care for themselves, their assets may be depleted in order for them to have long-term care. So I think sometimes it's just this tagline and this myth about generational wealth, and thinking if you didn't have the opportunity to own a home that you're doomed, and your downline generations will never either. And that is 100% false. It also is 100% false that if the previous generations did own a home, that you will too. Now, we're going to be finishing up this segment, but I wanted to let you know on my maternal my mother's side that they did own a home, and they had 3 children, and 2 of the 3 bought their own home, and 1 inherited fully the parents' home. And so, you never know how generations will be able to affect or help each other, or what the struggles will be that each generation will have. But it's more about the education. Teach your kids about money, teach them about how important homeownership is, and also how rough it can be at times. There will be times that mortgages can't be paid and repairs can't be done, and there will be other times that you're just not prepared for what those repairs and maintenance might be. So that's my 2 cents on generational wealth and homeownership. Obviously, I believe that homeownership is just something to strive for and so wonderful, and I am willing to help anybody to attain that. And I wouldn't say anything negative about that. It is the best investment that you could ever make. So I'm glad you joined me today, and I hope you get to watch all segments on our TV distributions, and then join us again next month. Have a great day.
The Legacy. Southern California.